interview. So go ahead and just give us your name, your pronouns, your year, your major, and just like talk about a little bit about yourself. And yeah.
I'm Eleanor Hilotin. I'm a first year in sixth. I use she, her pronouns, and my major is computer science. And I'm originally from Springfield, Missouri.
Yes. So our first question is, a common misconception about being a cultural coordinator is to only direct and oversee our Filipino cultural celebration event, but that's not the case, as you are part of the culture pillar in KP. How will you promote education of cultural knowledge and awareness in the KP space besides PCC? And what is a topic of interest to you or something you want to implement in that class program workshop?
I think one way that I would personally promote culture is probably definitely working with a cultural facilitator and also with my other coco, just trying to find more places where we're currently lacking in cultural awareness or cultural education, and just really working with different parts of Gen Board and other boards if necessary to find those spaces. And I think one topic that I'm personally pretty interested is, I know there was a PA Week GBM this quarter about it and the EDSA revolution. And I think it's just really interesting to me because my parents grew up during that time, so there's kind of that personal connection to it.
So PCC is highly valued in the KP space, and there seems to be a lot of expectation in the process of producing it. Do you have experience with leadership, organization, and planning? And how do you plan to use these skills to meet your vision for PCC?
Yeah, a lot of my recent leadership experience has been in the PCC space, particularly with the official culture cabinet. And I think the skills that I've gained from my experience this year have just been being more assertive and being able to make decisions while also working with others to get towards the vision that we're looking for. So I think the main things that I would use to achieve my vision for PCC 34 is just collaboration, but also more open channels of communication.
So our next question is, how will you ensure the awareness and preservation of cultural dance, music, and attire for PCC and outside of PCC to prevent appropriation?
I think a lot of that would come with working with both CT and OCC, just making sure we're doing our research, and also I think continuing what y'all have started this year for PCC with participating in a cultural dance and a modern dance. If you wanted to do a modern dance, you have to do a cultural dance. I think just making sure that we incorporate all those things while also still letting people do other things that they might want to do.
So for your next question, you have to work closely with your co and the cultural facilitator. How would you plan on communicating with them effectively? And what steps would you take to be proactive with your co and pillar?
I think mainly what I would do is just making sure that we maintain those open lines of communication. I definitely want my co and whoever the cultural facilitator ends up being to know that I'm definitely available to talk to if they need help or assistance or anything like that. So just making sure we have that reassurance and that kind of understanding between each other that if we need to talk to each other, then that's something that we can do.
Okay, and then your next question is, you have to work closely with your creative team and official cultural cabinet. How would you handle creative disputes, personality differences, and work imbalances? So 3 different scenarios.
I think firstly with creative disputes, I think what I would first try to do is see if there's any middle ground we can find or some kind of compromise we can make. And then if not, we would definitely have to make those hard decisions and see which one fits the vision for PCC more. And then with personality differences, I think just making sure that everyone has an understanding space and knowing people might not always get along, but kind of working towards mediating those disputes if they become a really big issue. And then also with work imbalances, I think probably talking to the members of CT and OCC, just making sure checking in on how they're doing and what their workload feels like, and just making sure that they feel comfortable with saying if they are imbalanced with their co, or if they just feel imbalanced in general, just making sure that they feel safe to open up about that.
So cultural dances are often gendered. What will you do to help complicate our ideas of gender and promote inclusivity?
I think definitely, while like the fact that they are gendered is there, I think making it so that everyone at least gets to like see, like especially during the workshops or something like that, see and maybe participate in all those things, and also like even if the workshops might be separated by like feminine and masculine dances, making it an option to like switch between the two if you want to, if you're just interested, is something that I would definitely continue doing in the future.
And next question. PCC is relatively a year-long process. How are you going to manage your time, and how will you practice self-care to sustain yourself long term?
I think definitely something that I've been starting to do this year is just like blocking my time out, and so just making sure like I have a visual like representation of what my time looks like, and then also just like communicating with my or with members of OC or CT, OCC or CT, just like making sure to delegate those things if there's ever like some imbalance, like for me personally.
So aside from GoFundMe and sponsorships, what other ways of funding do you have in mind, and what experience do you have with budgeting?
Well, I don't have any like organization wide experiences with budgeting. I think possibly like maybe more social media presence, and like just like kind of getting our name out there to like I guess get more eyes on it and get more pockets, I guess, on our production.
And for your last question,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Oh, no, go first.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, so the relatively high CAS fees discourages people from participating in PCC. How will you address and help people with financial issues?
I think one thing that I would do is definitely like similarly to how we've been doing this year, is just like having those opportunities to make up your all cast fees with like the bingo or the PCC grams, and just like making more of those opportunities available and definitely pushing those so that people are aware of the fact that it can like offset their fees.
I do have another question to add. It might kind of be a two-parter. So first part, which part should I ask first? Okay. So first part, this is specific for you. In your application, you mentioned not really growing up that much, like knowing about the culture. So as co-cultural coordinator, and with your background, how would you want to ensure that the production and your position kind of still incorporates a lot of that like learning experience for you and for the rest of KP?
I think definitely just like looking at like I guess the hallmarks of our history, and just like educating both myself and other members of KP on like the different parts of our culture. And I guess for me in particular, I definitely have a lot to learn because I didn't like grow up in a very big Filipino community. So I think like particularly for your question, I definitely just like want to educate myself more and like learn more alongside like my peers, just to like get a better handle on what we can teach the rest of KP.
And the second part of that question, or I guess my second question is, just want to make sure it wasn't asked. I know this was pretty much asked in your app, but what do you want to see for next year's PCC?
I think this can be like both like answered in creative and like logistical parts. I think particularly for like logistics and like collaboration, I guess just like a little bit more work, or not work, like communication and collaboration between OCC and CT, because I know that's something that was like started this year, and so I really just like want to build more on that groundwork, because I know I've heard from some members of OCC and CT that they would have also liked that. And then I guess For creative things, I definitely want to like work with CT on this, but one idea that I had was like kind of what I talked a little bit about earlier with like a PCC focused on the EDSA revolution, partially because of like my personal connection and like my parents' connection, but also just I think it might be interesting to try to figure out like how we can incorporate settings in the Philippines into our PCC.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience? No? Cool. Well, we're all done with questions. Do you have any questions for us or anyone on the board?
I think I'm good.